are welcome to Unit 5 of the module on curriculum studies in physics. And in Unit 5, we are looking at issues in physics curriculum development. And in the second session of Unit 5, we are going to look at the approaches to physics curriculum designing. My name is Patrick Ejay. Now, by the end of this session, you should be able to explain the difference between centralized and decentralized physics curriculum designing. Then 2, state the disadvantages as well as the advantages of the 1, centralized approach to physics curriculum designing. Then 2, decentralized approach to physics curriculum designing. And finally, determine which approach is used in designing the senior high school physics curriculum in Ghana. Now, let's look at the centralized curriculum designing. Now, when we say the curriculum design process is centralized, then what it means is that the curriculum content is decided upon by a central national office. So, for instance, in Ghana, we can say that the content may be decided by the Ministry of Education. And the work in designing the curriculum is done by a consulting company which may be contracted for that purpose, or a parastatal organization, or a division of the ministry responsible for education. So you realize in Ghana, most of the curriculum that are being used are developed by the National Council for Curriculum and Assessment, that is NACA, which is under the Ministry of Education. And so they design the curriculum that are being used in the various levels of our educational system. Now let's look at the characteristics of a centralized approach to curriculum designing. Now, one characteristic is that the subject content is centrally decided. And because the content is centrally decided, it means that it has the potential to achieve national goals and philosophies, as well as the general objectives of learning. Then secondly, instruments for evaluating subject content are developed centrally, and decisions on how these instruments will be administered are taken by the Ministry of Education or by the examining body that is appointed for that purpose. So in our senior high school system, WAEC is responsible for doing evaluation at the end of the 3-year program, where students will take their external exams, which is conducted by WAEC. And the other characteristic is subjects to be offered by schools are determined centrally. Schools only choose subjects from a given list. So every secondary school does not choose their own subject by themselves. However, there is a list of subjects that schools can offer. You only go into those lists and you select the subjects that your school should offer. And other characteristics are all learners taking the same subject, write the same examination, and are assessed in the same skills with adjustments made for learners with some disabilities. And so we are still making reference to the West African Examination Council exams that is normally used to assess learners at the end of the 3-year program. You realize because students are all taking a national curriculum, they all write the same kind of exams. The same skills and attitudes are being assessed. And normally, they also make room for learners with disabilities, said that in some instances, they will use longer duration to write the same papers as their counterparts without disabilities. And because it is a central body that decides the content, certification is also centrally controlled. Then in general, textbooks must be approved by the Ministry of Education before they can be used by any school. So you cannot just go and pick any textbook that you want to use unless those books are being approved by the ministry in charge of education. And there is also an inspectorate or standards control division that is established to monitor teaching and learning activities. Now, what are the advantages of a centralized curriculum designing? And one advantage is that since all schools use the same curriculum materials, it is easy to achieve national goals. Another point is that learners can also transfer from one school to another without being disadvantaged. So I can move from school A to school B because whatever thing is being done in school A in physics is the same content that is being done in school B in the same subject area. And the central body here, we are talking about the Ministry of Education, is involved in the curriculum designing process. And therefore, they determine the entry requirements for admission into institutions of higher learning. So they will determine after junior high school, the student must get this grade to be able to enter into the senior high level. And it is also easy to communicate to all schools regarding academic requirements. And so, because they are all using the same content materials, communication become easy in that regard. And finally, teaching learning materials used in schools can be mass produced. So if it is a set of rulers or rhetorstans that we need, now because we know that all schools doing physics will need these materials, we can produce them on a mass scale. And when this is done, we all know that it's going to be less expensive for both the producers as well as the consumers. What are the disadvantages of the national or the centralized curriculum designing? And one disadvantage is that it takes a long time for the curriculum document to be finally produced as a result of bureaucracy. And so because it is produced at the national level, several issues have to be taken into account before it can come out. And normally, if it is started by one government and the government is unable to finish the entire process, a different government would come and take over, and chances or likelihood for the next government to continue will be slow, and that will make the entire process slow. And the design is also insensitive to the needs of some groups within the country. So we said that every curriculum that is designed with the needs of the society in mind. And we have different religious, different social groups in our country. And it becomes insensitive to the needs of these groups because these are being developed nationally. And there are coordination and communication problems, especially when we have parastatals that are involved in the curriculum designing. So we know that these parastatal organizations, they are governmental. However, they work separately from the government. They work for the state, but they are not under the influence of the government. And so when one group is being assigned a work and a different government comes and the work is then taken from them and given to a different organization, communication now becomes a problem because they may need information from the first group in order to help them accomplish or finish the entire process. And it also stifles creativity and initiative on the part of the teacher and other community members. Because this is nationally done, normally we do not consult teachers to take their views on the content that has been taken into consideration in designing the curriculum. And in general, the centralized approach emphasizes content, and here specifically it emphasizes knowledge at the expense of the development of skills and attitudes. Now let's look at the decentralized. With a decentralized approach to curriculum designing, here local authorities or individual states in the country draft their own curriculum. So if we want to use Ghana as an example, we don't have states, we have regions. And so, for instance, Central region can develop their own curriculum. Eastern can do theirs, Volta can do theirs. So that is the decentralized curriculum. And this approach to curriculum design is most common in the developed countries. So in some developing countries, like a country like Nigeria in Africa, use this approach in curriculum design. They have larger population and they have larger states, and every state determine the kind of content that must be in their curriculum. What are the characteristics of the decentralized approach? So here, local authorities or local communities initiate the changes to suit their local needs, and teachers work with parents of learners to determine the curriculum content. And also, subjects in schools could be the same, but the content will vary from one school to another school, from state to state, from region to region, or district to district. So if, for instance, if Ghana were to be using the decentralized, then you realize that although we may have physics as a subject in Eastern and Central region, however, when you go to Central region, the content may be different from the content in Eastern region. And each school, state, region, or district also has their own syllabus that is also produced locally. And each school, district, or region has their own form of evaluation. So when they want to assess learners, because the curriculum was designed with the needs of that community or society in mind, whenever they are evaluating, they evaluate to see whether those aims and objectives of their local or decentralized curriculum has been achieved. And very few people are involved in this curriculum designing. What are the advantages of the decentralized curriculum designing? Here, the curriculum is designed to address the needs of the local community. And so, at the end of the day, we can address the needs of the local community. And two, the local community is also directly involved in the curriculum designing, and hence, they are committed to its implementation. So, assuming we are designing a curriculum, and you know you are the one going to use, and you were also involved in the design process, you realize that when this curriculum come out, because you took part in its designing, you would like to also implement to see the various shortfalls, the various strengths, and the weaknesses, so that in subsequent times when you are being called, you can, work on the weaknesses to get a better curriculum. And the decentralized approach also takes less time to produce the curriculum than it would take the centralized approach. And the system encourages creativity and initiative on the part of the teacher. So we include teachers in the community to bring their views, to bring what must be the content of the curriculum. Disadvantages. Here, there is no guarantee that national goals will be achieved, because we know that this is for a community, it is for a particular region or state, and so national goals may not be achieved. And it is not easy for learners to transfer from one school to another. So if a learner wants to move from one district or one state to another state, when the learner gets to that state, the learner will realize that the content in physics in state A was different or is different from the content in state B. And there may not be adequate expertise in the local community to develop some parts of the curriculum. And finally, data sources such as textbooks, journals, and other reference materials may not be available at the local level to be consulted during the curriculum designing process. Now, students, in this session, we described the nature of the two approaches to curriculum designing, and these approaches were the centralized and the decentralized approaches to curriculum design. And we also discussed their advantages as well as their disadvantages. Now, students, which approach do you think is used in designing the senior high school physics curriculum in Ghana? Thank you for joining today's session, and see you in the subsequent session. Bye.